So in this video I want to walk through basically creating a new service offering in Service Manager based on Orchestrator runbook. And obviously in Orchestrator we can create runbooks to do pretty much anything. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is just create a runbook really quickly that creates a new user. So I'm going to say I want to create a new runbook. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to check it out. Rename it to create new user. And now I'm going to just firstly initialize some data. This is actually going to be fed to me by Service Manager. And so I'm going to double click this and I can add a number of attributes. So parameter 1 could be, for example, the activity. And that's going to come from Service Manager, so it's identification. I want, if it's creating a new user, I want the user's first name. I want the user's last name. User Sam account name, or just alias, whatever I want to call it. Doesn't matter. And let's just say we'll enter a password as well. So basically going to be sent 5 pieces of information from Service Manager. And now I've imported the Active Directory integration pack. So I'm going to create a user. And what I can easily do here, let's put this out a little bit. I can say I want to pass control from initiate data to create user. And I click on him. I'm going to connect to my Active Directory, which I've already defined. If I go to my options, I'll do that in a sec. And then I have properties. So I'm going to subscribe to information that I'm getting off of my data bus. So I've got published data and I've got that user alias that I'm being fed from that initialized data. I also want to add the first name, last name, and the password. And likewise, I click it, right click, publish data. So the first name, I'm going to select first name. Last name, you can probably guess. And no surprises for the password. So I'm taking the alias, first name, last name, and password. Now by default, when it creates a new user, it actually creates the user as disabled. So the next thing I'm going to do is enable that user. And again, I'm going to create a link from this action to my enable user. And again, it's going to connect to that Active Directory connection I have. And the distinguished name, I can actually take from that create user previous step, and I'm going to take the distinguished name that's going to get generated for me. So I'm basically subscribing to information from that previous activity. And again, there's those options here for Active Directory. I have that configured, which is an account that can go and create objects. And then finally, what I want to do is within Service Manager, update the status to my Service Manager box. It's a runbook automation activity. And it's the activity ID from that initialization step. So I'm passing it back the ID. And I could pass it back some additional fields. I don't know. some long text, And I could, for example, pass it maybe the activity status, for example, so it knows that activity status from enabling the user. And I could set other things, pass it back if I wanted to. I'm also going to turn on logging so I can actually see when this runbook is called. And then basically I need to check that in. And obviously at this point I should go through, check this, make sure there's no errors. There could well be. But just in the interest of time to show the overall process, I don't really care so much about the success or failure. Once I've checked that in, now within Service Manager, that runbook initially won't be visible. If I search for user, these are actually old ones. My new one isn't there. So the first thing I actually have to do is make Orchestrator synchronize. So I'm going to go into Orchestrator and do Synchronize now. And I'm going to let that run for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to do a refresh, see if that synchronization is completed. So it finished successfully. So now if I go back to my library and look at my runbooks and search for user, there's my create new user, that one I just created. So now what I want to do is actually create a custom run activity, a runbook activity for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it, and you're going to just select it and select create runbook automation activity. And I'm going to store that in a custom pack, and I'll give it a name. So I don't know, create new user runbook auto activity. And I'm highly unoriginal, so I'm just going to call it the same thing. And then what it's going to do is open up a template, and there's some fields I have to populate in here for this to correctly function. So this is going to be a create new user runbook app. Less haste, more speed. I give it an area. So for me, there's already a directory 1. I'm going to give this a release. I guess I'll just assign this to me for now, but obviously I can override any of this. The important thing is it's ready for automation. I mean, that's really the key point for this to function. The next thing I can actually do is, once that's populated, go and look at the runbook. And what I need to do now is map all of them, make sure these are all mapped. So the first one is the activity ID. This I want to map to my object ID. Now for the user first name, for example, I can now just map these to effectively custom fields. So user first name is mapped to text1. User password is mapped to text3. And I need to make a note of these. I need to know which is which. So I'm actually making a quick note of this in Notepad as I'm doing this. So user first name was text1. User password is custom text3. User alias is custom text4. And user last name is custom text5. So I need to know all these to pass into a template later on. So make sure you make a note of what you're mapping those to. So I've done that. Click apply. And then once that's done, I can click OK. So I now have a custom new user up auto activity. So I may rename that quickly. So now where that's actually going to show is in templates. So if I jump over to my templates, I have a new user. I'm going to rename that quickly because that's going to confuse me later on. So now I have a custom activity I can use, and I saved it in that default customization management pack. And I could have put that in anything. I mean, you probably have your own management packs you use for your own custom activities. So now what I'm going to do is actually create a service request template. So I actually want to use this. So I'm going to say create template. I give it a name. So request new user service request template. So my class is going to be a service request. And again, I can select where I want to. I can store it in the Service Manager request configuration library. So I'll take its recommendation. And now I actually go in and define what I want to happen as part of this. So there's some details I'm going to want to do. So this is creating new user service request. And I can give it urgency. It's probably not that important. Area with directory, account management. And again, you can customize all these sources. I'm just going to say other for now. Again, you do whatever you want in here. None of that's needed. So activities, this is where I actually now use that runbook I created. So the first thing I want is a review activity. So because it's a new user, I want whoever requests this, in my example, this is very basic, I want their line manager as defined in Active Directory to approve it. So I'm going to say approve the line manager. It needs to be unanimous. So this is just a very basic, someone has to approve it before it continues. But you could add in maybe HR, whatever you wanted to do. So that's the basic approval. So next thing I'm going to add is that custom new user runbook auto activity I just created. So you've got the create new user runbook activity and then the runbook. And again, you got these mappings that we defined previously, so you can go and check them here, make sure you've got those right values defined. So that's my really, really basic service request template. It wants an approval, then it's going to basically run that runbook. So the next thing I do is I'm going to create a request offering. Now in my environment, I've already created a couple of graphics. So I've got a little user graphic that I've copied over to my local box. Don't even use that one anymore. So I've got a little user icon which I'm going to show because that's going to be used as the graphic. So I'm going to jump over to my request offerings. And currently I've got a couple in my environment. I've got create a virtual machine, request an incident. I'm going to create a new one, create request offering. And this is going to be to request a user. And I'm going to browse, I'm going to select my little user picture. I'm going to not be interesting at all. I'm going to select the template. Request new user, service request, template, what I just created. Management pack it's using. Now it's going to get into the user prompts. So please fill in all details. So for example, user prompt. I'm going to have 4 of them. So the first one is going to be the first name, and it's required. Last name. Sam account name or alias, whatever it is I want to do. Password. So these are the fields I want. Now the next thing is, what are the prompts? So I can just accept. So I can configure various constraints if I needed to for the various different types of prompts. But for me, there's nothing I need to do. So you can see if I needed, I can allow any string, just an email format, whatever I want. So if I wanted to be clever, which I always try and stay away from, for example, on maybe the Sam account name, I could restrict it to a certain number of characters, but for now I'm just going to skip all of that. I'm just going to say next. Now this is where I do need to do that mapping. So I've got users entering these 4 bits of text. I need to map them. So what I need to do right now is remember all those little fields that I wrote down. So for example, to create new user runbook, so I've got text 1, text 3, text 4, and text 5. And the runbook is expecting these. And it's showing me map to runbook parameter user first name. So I'm going to use first name. User password. So I'm going to say the password. Parameter user alias. Sam account name. User last name. So this is basically mapping those properties to those output that the user are basically going to be passing in. So I need to make sure I get the right ones in. So I've done that, I've configured those properties. There's no knowledge articles. I'm actually going to set this to published. I'm going to make me the owner and create it. So at this point, right now, without doing anything else, let's wait that finish. It would now show under the request offerings. It wouldn't show in the service catalog. So that's done. So right now I have another published request offering. So if I go to my web portal, it won't show here in my service catalog yet. But what it will show is in the list view, I've got my request new user. Now I want it to show in my service catalog. So what I'm actually going to do, back to category view, is create a service offering. Now before I do that, I want to have my own category for these directory operations. So I'm going to go in and under the service offering category, I'm going to add a new one. And I'm just going to call it, I don't know, directory. So now I have that new grouping. So now I can go to my service offerings, and I'm going to create a new one for directory management. I'm going to use that same little user icon that I had last time. So I'm going to do create a service offering, give it a title, management. A little user picture again. Category is that directory I just added. User and group management. Again, not original. Nope. And you would put this in. You could put in related services, knowledge articles. The only thing I care about is adding a request offering. Remember that request offering has to be published. It can't be draft. It won't work. So request new user is published. Add it. I'm going to say I want this to be published as well, so it's going to show. And again, I'm rushing through all of this. You would do various testing, make sure these things work. I've not even tested that runbook, so I'm fully expecting when I try and run this, it's going to collapse on itself. But I wanted to show you the process and create. So now once this is complete, if I go and refresh that web page, I should see a new category. And I'll see my new, hey, I want to create a user. Great. So if I now go and refresh, bang, directory. And within directory management, I have that request new user. Now, before I proceed with this though, so I can actually go in and I should see all the nice little forms, those fields I requested that I typed in. However, a couple of things. Firstly, my user is going to request authorization from the line manager. So that has to be populated. Mine is. And if I look at organization, I can see the manager is John Saville, so me. And again, I would populate that in Active Directory. So if I look at my administrator account, the organization manager is John Saville. So if I just went and updated that in AD, before that would show in Service Manager, I would have to go to the Active Directory connector and tell that to synchronize. So I would go to the AD, synchronize now, and then check back that that configuration item had a manager in there. Then there's one other thing I like to do. This is going to request the manager to come in and approve this request. So I'd like to tell them that. So what I've done in advance is I've created an email notification template. So I created it called Notify Reviewer to Approve. And there's nothing complicated about this. I just created it. I used the HTML format. So I insert the ID of the work item. And that's just found by doing the insert button. And you can see the work item ID. And then I created this in, actually as her expression. So I just crafted what I want the email the user gets to look like. And again, I can see that. So if I jump over, I actually saved that as a HTML file. So I created it in expression, formatted, used the fonts that I want it to look like, and then basically just cut and pasted the HTML straight into that form. Now what I add in here is one is a link to the activity. So I link to my Service Manager portal with the activity, and the activity ID equals the work item ID. So when they get this email, they're going to be able to just click that and it's going to take them to the Service Manager portal and they can approve it. Or I've got these email options, so I've got my Exchange connector. So they can actually just send an email and hit approve, and it's going to create a new mail item, you can see here, to the Service Manager account that will say approve in the body and have the work item ID. Again, very easy to do. If I look at the source again, you can see I've got two links, and I'll put this file up with the video on the Saville Tech website. So you can actually see I create an email to Service Manager work with the subject, so you do question mark, subject equals the work item ID, then ampersand body equals square brackets approved square brackets, or if I want to reject it, square brackets rejected. And those values are defined as part of the Exchange connector. So again, I just paste that in. Very, very easy. So I've created an email template. I should have done okay. And again, if I look at my Exchange connector, I can see here that if it gets an inbound email, what it will actually do is it will look in the body of the message and it will actually say, hey, if I see certain keywords, so if I see approved, that means it was approved. If I see rejected, it means it was rejected. The next thing I do is, well, how do I know to send that email? So for my workflow, it's part of my activity event workflow configuration. So I'm going to configure those rules. And it was part of review activities. So I select that and click OK. And what I did is I added a new one. And all I have in here, so I'm going to edit what I've already created. So this is not specific to Orchestrator and Service Manager. This is the general email that always gets sent out if there's a review activity. All I trigger off is when there's a new review activity. I don't apply any template, but I say if the changed from, if the activity, well, I've already added it, but if the activity does not equal in progress before, and afterwards it changes to equals in progress, so it's gone from not in progress to in progress, I don't apply a template, I don't do that, but I enable notification, and basically the reviewers get sent that email template I created. And I click add, so now they get sent that email automatically. And then click OK, and I'm done. So, okay, let's see it in action. So the first thing is, I'm going to create a user called Bugs Bunny. Sam against Bugs Bunny. I don't know. Password 5. And again, that user doesn't exist yet. I have no user called Bugs Bunny. So say next, submit. So at this point now, it's saying, yep, successfully requested, submitted a new ID. It may take a few moments before your request is available. And now, if I actually go and look at my work items, I will see all open service requests. It's going to take a little while. Now what I'm waiting for is a little ding that says, hey, there's an email. So this is this create new user request, and I can open that up, and I can see there's a couple, so I can see the values I typed in. Again, I don't want to get into security. Yes, I typed the password in clear text. This is just what I'm doing here. You do whatever you want. This is just an example. And I can see I've got 2 activities. And so what's going to happen is Service Manager is going to kick off. It could take maybe a minute, and it's going to see that progress changed to in progress. And it will send my manager, so I'm administrator right now, and I'm also my own manager, an email saying, hey, there's something for you to go and approve. So the first thing it needs is that approval. So right now it's sitting there and it wants that approval to come in. So history, it's not been done yet. It's just pending. So I just got an email notification. If I click that, so let's shrink that down. So it's to me, it's saying, hey, there's a new request, and there's that link, and notice I've got those approve and reject texts. So I'm just going to hit the link. And what it's doing is, I'll drag that over, it's showing me all my approval. So right here, I could go and select I'm the reviewer and say approve. And it will approve that activity. So that's one way of doing it. But notice it automatically just linked. From that email they got, they can just click it and they go to the website. Or they can just go to the website any way they want and continually monitor. Or, hey, I can just do a direct option. I'm going to click approve. And what that does is it noticed it populated the review activity ID with approved in the body. And I'm just going to hit send. That's it. And close that. So within 60 seconds, so I've got my Exchange connector to basically check every 60 seconds. Do refresh. So that's currently in progress, but it's not got a tick yet to do it next, so it's waiting for that approval. Okay, so that's been found, and that's actually called in the runbook. So now, if I jump over to my brand new runbook, oh, we can actually see it's already run. So I can click it and it's done initialize data, create the user, enable the user, and update the object. So if I jump to my domain controller and do refresh, oh, there's Bugs Bunny. And so now what will happen is, after a period of time, they both now show as completed and it shows completed. So it's all happened. So actually, I'm just actually shocked it worked first time. So that was it. So that was actually creating a new runbook, connecting it into Service Manager, creating a request offering as a service offering, email-based change request and management, and then it went and kicked that off. I have full logging in Orchestrator. I have full logging if I look at my closed service requests. Sorry, completed service requests. This is the one I just did. I can look at the history, and I can see all those various actions that have happened to it. So the parameters I typed in, the old value from new to in progress what kicked off that email, and then various action logs related to this item. So that was it. That was that complete from start to finish. I hope that was useful. Thank you.